All right, my Renowned fam, welcome back to the Renowned Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Morris, and I'm so thankful, as always, that you're here. Now, before we get into today's guest, I just want to remind you all, the New Year's coming up. It's just a few weeks away, and now is the perfect time to get in on Purposeful Success with Renowned Leadership, our goal-setting program. Stop wasting your time with New Year's resolutions that never work, and start actually pouring yourself into goals that are a system that lead you to where you have a purposeful, successful life. So with all that being said, here we go with today's podcast. I hope you all enjoy it. I will see y'all at the end. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Renowned Leadership. I can't even talk already. I'm like 2 seconds into it and I cannot talk. How annoying is that? Welcome back to the Renowned Leadership, my Renowned fam. I am so happy to have y'all back. And today I have a super awesome, high-powered, high-value guest, man. His name is Mike Hardy. Mike, welcome to the Renowned Podcast, my brother.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
And Mike is hailing from the wonderful Southern California, I believe you said.
Southern California, that's correct.
Go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit and give us some of your background.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a husband and father first, married 26 years, 4 kids. It range from 22, 19, 17, and 14. And I am a family man and an entrepreneur. And I'm somebody that sees the world as a place of endless possibility, and absolutely look at every single day as a gift and a new opportunity to grow and learn and do something of significance. So I find myself in the mortgage banking business and as a real estate investor for a long time, and just love the combination of numbers and people in real estate. That's a sweet spot for me. So anytime I can be working with people, some kind of numbers and math interaction, I just really appreciate the purity of numbers. And then, of course, the amazing world of real estate, that's a sweet spot. So look forward to our conversation.
So you started right off with family, and that brings up a very passionate topic of mine, which is work-life balance. Now, let me tell you my stance real quick, and we're going to see how close we agree.
All right.
So I think the phrase work-life balance is a myth and a lie. I think there has to be sacrifice somewhere, right? And my example is, if you put 2 equally high-powered CEOs in a room with a problem to solve, nothing is going to happen. They're just going to continue to butt heads until one of them becomes subservient to the other, right? In most cases. So work-life balance, I kind of look at the same way. It's just going to keep colliding with each other until one of them takes priority. There has to be a priority somewhere, and it's more based off what you feel is more important. So obviously, first thing you list is family. Obviously, family is far more important to you than business could be, or I'm assuming. So what are your thoughts on that?
No, I agree with you. I think it's the concept of work-life balance is a little bit of a myth, but there is a place that it's always a question of priorities and sacrifice. And I look at work-life balance more along the lines of there's seasons and windows of life where we have to have an intentional imbalance to then get to a place that is going to be healthy. And so that needs to come and be looked at with a high level of intention. No different than going through school and getting a degree, getting a business up and off the ground. I think where we have to be careful is that anytime we do something for 90 days or more, I just did that 75 hard program, but anytime you do like 90 days or more, you end up building in habits. And so if unhealthy habits are built in, those can then stay ingrained for years. And I think that could be very unhealthy. But when it comes to work-life balance, it's a matter of deciding what's important and putting up boundaries to protect you from you. Like, that's what I need to do, because work is play for me. I love the stuff that I do, and I could do it for 12, 15 hours sometimes and be just it's an energy positive, putting things together and people together. Now, that said, I also, it's rare that I do that. What I also do is I'm very intentional with my family, with my date nights with my wife, with doing things specifically just me and each of my kids. So I think that there's actually way more time in life than most people realize. There's 168 hours in a week, and that's a lot of time. And you only need, 6 to 8 hours for being asleep. And so it's really more about being intentional with that time and pouring it into the different areas of life that matter and that are priorities. So that's kind of how I look at work-life balance. Probably a little bit unconventional, but that's my take.
How do you manage your time then? Do you time block? Do you to-do list? Like what do you do to ensure that you're keeping those habits in check?
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, let me preface the answer with this. I heard at one point that if you spend just over 1% of your day on something and you do it every day for a year, you'll be in the top roughly 5% in the nation simply by being intentional daily in a topic. And so I do a fair amount of time blocking, but I also have a lot of margin that's in my day. So, it's funny, you can't see this, but it's like a journal, and I go through and I have things that I need to get done each day. And I break it down into like 4 different categories that are non-negotiables for me. And the 4 different categories are body, being, balance, and business. So every single day, I'm going to do something that's fitness related, and I'm going to make sure that, it's fitness and fuel are the subcategories of body. And so every day I do some kind of exercise for a minimum of 1% of the day. That's only 15 minutes, right? It's 1% of the day. So I know that no matter what, I can at least exercise and sweat for 15 minutes. Usually it's more than that, but as a fallback, say I'm traveling or something. So, and then I'll have a green drink, and that allows me to make sure that at least I've got minimum baseline nutrition. Because I figure, like, we have one body that's going to get us for 100 years plus or minus. We might as well take care of it and weaponize it so that it can best serve us in all areas. So, but that's one. The being side, that's like a little bit of sitting in silence each day and thinking, taking some prayer time, taking some meditation time, and journaling. Then also the next one is balance. Balance is investing in my wife and my kids, just doing something thoughtful, even if it's small. Again, it doesn't take that long. It's just the daily deposits. And then on the business side, it's called Discover and Declare. And that is every single day learning something new about my craft and then teaching it to somebody else in the marketplace. Maybe it's my team here, maybe it's forward facing, maybe it's a webinar, but just every day giving something back that I've learned so I can anchor the lesson in my own life. So that system right there allows me to, it's called the core 4, make sure that in the 4 different important areas of life that I have guardrails and consistent growth that takes place. So I never get lopsided in one and have a, result in a train wreck in the other.
So that's awesome, because you and I are pretty much cut from the same cloth, because I got the same thing. I got my little to-do journal, bullet journal, I think is the technical term for it, but I just call it my to-do journal. And I break it down into categories as well, not near as in depth as you do. Maybe I should incorporate that. I just break it down into life and business, but maybe I should be more intentional about how I break it down. And then I also time block on my calendar as well from my journal.
Okay.
What? So how long have you been journaling?
It's when I say journaling, sometimes it just sort of turns into a to-do list, and sometimes it's actually some deep thoughts and
Right.
reflections. So when I say journaling, I want to caveat that, but it's more a matter of me taking the time to get whatever is in here and out and onto paper. And sometimes it's super creative, and sometimes it's just highly practical. So I give myself a lot of latitude and permission on that. I would say for the last, I don't know, maybe not quite 10 years, a little less than that. It's been a practice of mine to just hit this core 4 every day. and it's cathartic for me. I mean, I think sometimes like what I'll do is in my mind, there's so much going on. I'm like, okay, I need to clear my mind because there's just too much happening. And I'll take the time to just write out everything that's up here. And I realize that after I write it out and I'm looking down at it, the level of stress drops about 3 clicks. All of a sudden, it's like, it's out of my head, it's on paper. It's actually called like, what is it? Psychomotor neurological activity. It's like and your mind starts to then subconsciously solve things because it can, you rise above the problem in a sense. So that's the reason I do it. I write a lot. I mean, I've got countless, in fact, I just burned through another one and now I'm onto this one. So I've got, it seems like every month there's another quote journal, even though sometimes it's just a to-do list for the day. And then yes, sometimes there's actually a creative side that comes out.
And I love that you brought that up because to me, that's what journaling is. I think people have a wrong idea of journaling. I think people think of journaling as like a 13-year-old teenage girl with a pink book with a purple heart-shaped lock on it with a pink butterfly key that starts every sentence with Dear Diary.
That's right. I've never written Dear Diary, not once.
Right. And but because I mean that's exactly how I journal too. Sometimes I just write in the things I need to do. Sometimes like you said, I keep several journals. I have a goal journal. I have what I call a defrag journal. So like on those days where I just need to dump everything out of my brain, that's what that's for. But I started doing that because I noticed my journals were getting cluttered and I was having trouble finding what I wanted.
Mm.
So I just started keeping separate journals. I think I have 7 total. But I don't write in all 7 hardly yet. Like the main ones are my to-do journal, my bullet journal, and my goal journal.
Okay.
So but yeah, I love the practice and it's definitely therapeutic for me. And it's also one of the most useful problem solving tools I've ever found. I started doing it way, way back in the day when I first got put into a leadership role in the Army. And I
Mm.
started doing it just to track what was going on. So, because I was trying to figure out what worked and what didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was doing that, I realized like, oh wow, like this is helping me actually solve problems. So then I started just kind of problem solving journal or using a journal as a problem solver, and then it grew and grew and grew. But I wish more, and that's with my clients. That's one of the things I try so hard to convey to them and get them to do. And they've pushed back so hard; they just don't want to do it. And I think it's because they don't see the value in it and I don't know how to convey the value any better than you and I have right now. And so it's just like, well, either you're not going to do it or you're not, or you're going to do it or you're not.
I have a lot of things I do each day that I don't want to or I don't feel like it. And what I've noticed is that there's there's a value, excuse me, there's a value in the discipline because it takes after a little while, I think we all get to see where the value is and at least pick up some good habits from that. And so I'll do all kinds of different 90-day projects or disciplines to see, even though I don't like it, to see where the lesson is, and where it's possible to grow and expand. So like right now, for example, for this third quarter, I've got 5 more things that I'm doing each day, and I'll read them to you. I used to play chess back years ago and I haven't played. My boys started getting into it. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to play a game of chess each day. And it doesn't matter if it's with one of them or the computer, but I'm going to do that for 90 days because I wanted to get better at it again, right? I was real good in the past and then it kind of fell off. So chess, read nonfiction. Part of the 75 hard program is you have to read the 10 minutes a day, which I already do, but not every day. So now it's a daily thing. So I have that on my checklist. I wanted to go through the Bible. I hadn't done that for years. And so I'm doing the audio version just when I work out. It's like the daily gets you through it in a year. I wanted to also, there's a program called the Stack, which allows you to like sort through emotions. And so it's an app I have. I go through that. And then the last one is I want to get better at Chat GPT. So every single day for 90 days, I will get in Chat GPT and I will just spend a few minutes in there asking questions and, kind of like driving around the neighborhood, so to speak, to just sort of learn the neighborhood. And it's amazing. I've realized that there's some amazing efficiencies that exist through ChatGPT that were, off my radar, but I'm only figuring it out because I'm doing a little bit each day.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it's not, it goes, for me, it goes beyond the discipline because in the military, and I know I sound like a broken record to everybody. Yes, I always talk about being in the military. I did it for 16 years. It was the vast majority of my adult life. I'm sorry. It's all I got. But in the military, discipline is mandatory, right? Like you have to be disciplined or your life sucks. And when I got into the civilian world, I lost a lot of my discipline. So I had to earn all that discipline back. The reason why it's so important to me is because I've noticed every single successful person that I look up to, every single one, they have intense discipline.
Hmm.
And like you said, there are hours spent doing things that they don't necessarily want to do. When we look at, famous successful people, all we see is the beauty of their craft, whatever it may be. We don't see all the, painstaking hours of watching game film. If you're Peyton Manning, where, his wife talked about, he would spend 10 hours in the game room just watching game film. Well, we don't see that painstaking task. I'm sure after 2 hours, you're like, I'm so done with this.
Right.
But you got to keep going because that's how you become great. So I definitely agree with that mindset. And I think that also it's people get in their own way because people don't truly believe in themselves. They don't truly believe that they can be great, that they can be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And so that mindset with, well, why would I do that? Because it doesn't matter. I'm never going to be Elon Musk. So having habits like Elon Musk doesn't even matter.
Yeah, I think that what healthy habits do, this is an Aristotle saying I like, which is first we create our habits and then our habits create us. And a lot of these things, like they become subconscious over time. And I remember my dad teaching me to drive a stick shift manual years ago. And he said something that I didn't realize how profound it was until later in life. But he said, you know what, son? Because Mike, at first, this is going to be stick shift and then it will become an automatic. I kind of looked at him weird. He's like, yep, it'll be an automatic. You won't even notice it anymore. And so many things in life are like that, where there's a discipline, it's a grind, and I don't get it. I'm figuring it out and I don't want to do it. And then after a while, it's subconsciously driven, it's built in, and it's a part now of a tool set and a skill set that I'm able to build upon. And so I kind of look at these different disciplines, not as much as a discipline, but as like a, sort of rite of passage to be able to grow and expand.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because the first thing that popped into my head that was like that is email. I didn't realize I'd do it until a couple of days ago. But in the army, they taught us like you get an email, you check it immediately, you answer it. You don't leave it till tomorrow. You get a text message, you check it, you answer it immediately. And you get in trouble if you don't. And so I guess that habit just got built into me over time. So to this day, like my phone goes off, I get an email, I check it, I answer it, or I delete it, or I put it in the appropriate folder, whatever. It takes two
Yeah.
seconds, not a big deal. But I was in a mastermind talking to a guy, and he had 20,000 unread emails,
Mm.
and I about had a heart attack.
Yeah.
I like my
That wouldn't work
mind,
for me.
not at all. And so we were talking about it, and I'm like, dude, but so like one, you could be missing out on some very important information. You never know. But it's like it's just dirty. It's cluttered. How can you tolerate it? And he's like, yeah, but it's digital. Yeah, well, digital dirt's still dirt, man.
Right.
So, but yeah, it's that habit. Like I didn't even realize that I had that habit until that conversation. And then after I got to thinking about it, it's like, yeah, an email will not stay in my inbox unless I'm asleep, longer than an hour. but
Right.
that goes unread. So anyway, thank you for chasing the squirrels with me on this. Very, very interesting stuff. So
Yeah, absolutely.
you were talking about being in the real estate game. What exactly do you do? What I don't know a whole lot about real estate, so kind of dumb it down for me.
Yeah, two things. So I've been in the mortgage space for a long time. So my group here, my company, Churchill Mortgage, California, Nevada, is the areas that I run and lead, with a partner of mine. And we help about 5,000 families a year, or excuse me, about 5,000 families over the last 5 years, I should say, with a purchase or refinance. Just understand the world of real estate. But it's much more than that. I was formally trained as a financial advisor out of college before getting into the real estate mortgage space. And so really, we help people understand how to grow wealth in real estate and have strategically manage any debt necessary to help grow that wealth. Because if you look at the world of real estate, it's, for sometimes it seems like a little bit of a mystery for people, but it's actually really quite simple. Like, it's just almost like a child grows, real estate over time grows as well. And short of like, a lot of people look at real estate and think, well, maybe there could be a crash, maybe there could, this could happen, that could happen. When you boil down just like the basics of supply and demand, you've got so many people and so many houses, and you can get a really good idea of where property values will be in the future based on the population, the future population, looking at demographics, the existing amount of homes available, and then the rate that new homes are being built. I mean, it's, to oversimplify it, it's just almost like if you had a lemonade stand and people are thirsty and how many cars are driving by. It's like there's a level of predictability of how much lemonade is going to sell based on available and then cars driving by. So same thing in real estate. So in real estate, what most people don't know is that over the course, if you buy a home in 15 years, plus or minus, the property value is going to double. In a slow market, it might take closer to 20 years for it to double. In a fast growing market, it might be closer to about 10 years that it will double. Right. And that's fairly common. If you look all the way back throughout history, real estate grows about 4 to 5% trend line over the last, 50, 100 years. So what we do is we help people. I do a lot of investing in real estate as well, and I have an opportunity zone fund, which is a much more complex conversation, but oversimplified, we help people buy homes, understand if it's safe and if it's smart, and then also when it makes sense to refinance, if there's a better way, we will proactively let them know. We'll manage debt. So that's kind of a long way of saying that we give a lot of guidance and strategy and advice when it comes to helping people build wealth in real estate.
What are some of the most common mistakes people make when buying a home? Obviously, getting in an adjustable rate is pretty dangerous.
Yeah, it
What
can
else
be. I
is there?
mean, that's a great tool for a sophisticated investor in certain scenarios. For most people, it's much
Really?
better to get a fixed rate program. Some of the common mistakes that take place are, well, here's a big one, is thinking is not properly budgeting for being able to buy. And like, as an example, I see some folks that they want to buy a home, but the payment's going to be double what they're paying in rent. And you can either afford it or you can't. Okay. And let's say that the income is there. And usually, as a rule of thumb, if somebody's income is 10 grand a month, about a third of that can go to housing. It's technically allowed to be a little more. You can actually get up almost pretty close to 50% can be allowed to go to housing related expenses. But as a rule of thumb, if someone's got 10 grand a month, should be, $3,400 going to housing. So what we like to do is help people start saving at that level. Because if somebody's going to have a pretty significant jump in payment, but they have no savings, there's behaviors that need to change first. So what we want to do is we want to align healthy decisions with the right behaviors and sort of help on that track. So that's one. The misconceptions are that you have to have 20% down. You don't. You can do that with a lot less down. There's, VA programs for 0% down for, military, for veterans. There's 3% down, there's 5% down. So there's a lot of programs out there. I think the misconception is that you have to have everything perfect before you do buy a home. I actually look at it a little bit different, because again, back to the analogy of, let's say, a child that's growing. If somebody thinks they want to be a homeowner at some point and not be a renter, because rent costs keep rising as well, then when somebody is responsibly able to buy, they should. So something that is, I think, an error that people make is they try to time the market. And they try to say, let's wait until this happens or that happens when they're ready to buy, but they're trying to be a market timer. I rarely see that work out for a primary residence. If you're an investor, different story, because you're buying cash flow for the most part. So that would be my off the cuff advice on that.
Okay. So let's flip the script then. What are some key traits young and aspiring real estate managers or people trying to get in the mortgage business, what advice would you give them to prepare them for the challenges they're about to face?
For somebody that wants to get into the mortgage business?
Mm-hmm.
Got it. So when you're getting into the mortgage business, if you're doing this as somebody that wants to build a book of clients and help them in the way that I just discussed, you're really running your own business. And so running a business is no different than starting any business. You're going to have some ramp up time in order to be able to start to find the right people, find the people to be able to help, because that's really the job is finding people, bringing value, finding a pain or a problem, and then providing possibility and a path. Pain, problem, possibility, and path. And so to do that in a market where it's an economic storm that's taking place, because we're going through, it's a very complicated time in the mortgage business. You just have to plan on having enough personal liquidity to be able to get your business up and off the ground. So, it's kind of a different market right now, because the volume of business, just to give a sort of an example, these numbers should be pretty close, but there was about 15 million loan transactions back a couple years ago between purchase and refinance. And then this year, the projection is going to be under 5 million, I think 4.5 million.
Wow.
So that's a huge drop in number of transactions taking place. And it'll be that way most likely for the rest of the year. And then next year, in 2024, we should have another good wave of business, separate conversation. So the advice to somebody getting in the mortgage business is, do you have the mental resilience and the financial staying power to be able to get a business up and off the ground? If you do, the business is absolutely amazing. It's the world's best kept secret. And I'll tell you why. Because you don't have the same level of talent that flows out of the university system that goes into every other profession: financial advisor, CPA, you want to be a doctor, a lawyer. Like there's career paths that go and a path for talent to flow into all the different disciplines, but there's not a normal path into the mortgage business. So people end up here by accident a lot. And as a result, it's much easier to shine. So I was a financial advisor for the first number of years of my career out of college. Everyone's smart. Everyone works hard. Everybody brings value. People show up. They are on their game. And in the mortgage business, it's just it's a lot easier to shine because you don't have the same level of talent and you don't have the same level of consistency and discipline that most other professions either require because of the guardrails on the job or because of the talent that's in that industry.
Why is that?
Well, I think that here's why. Because of this economic cycles that we go through in real estate, and because the barrier of entry to get into the mortgage business is not too high. Doesn't take a law degree. It doesn't take a Series 7 license. Like, it's just, you got to pass your test, and there's, it takes a little bit. And there can be a handful of years where it's just an abundance of business. People think it's easy. And so someone will get in and they'll have a couple good years, and then it'll get difficult, and they thought it was an easy business, and it wasn't. So that's one aspect, is you can develop bad habits real easily when there's a lot of business coming and you don't have to work for it. So that's one of the reasons. And then it goes through cycles. And so then, or if you start in a cycle and you don't have the staying power or the right business model or the right company, then guess what? You don't make the turn. So it's just got a lot of complication to it, and not a path, like a career path that most industries have. And I think that's one of the reasons that it, sort of has a vacuum of talent and attracts sometimes the wrong people, because they think it's going to be easy and they can make a quick buck.
Hey everyone, Steven here. As we gear up for the new year, I've got something super special for you today. But before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and ring that notification bell so you can always experience the motivation and inspiration and the tips that we bring to you every single week here. Now let's talk about New Year's resolutions. How many times have you set a resolution only to have it fizzle out by the beginning of February or before January is even close to being over? Well, not this time. I've got a game-changing program that will teach you how to set goals that actually stick and that will propel you towards success in both your personal and professional life. Imagine saying goodbye to the cycle of failed resolutions. Picture yourself achieving what you set out to do. And it's all possible with our proven methods that I've been perfecting for over 20 plus years. We'll be diving deep into the art of effective goal setting. And it's not just about writing down your goals. It's about a strategic approach that guarantees success. Go to renownleadership.com/goals to learn more. And let's make 2024 your best year yet. We only take 25 new goal setters every month, and spots fill up fast. So make sure you get yours today. And for this month only, if you use coupon code Renowned Goals at checkout, you'll get 20% off. Again, spots fill up fast, so make sure you get yours today. So if you're tired of the same old resolutions that never work, join us on this journey. Remember, goals are within your reach. Sign up now. Let's make 2024 your best year ever. Right. Yeah, that's kind of what I figured. And I feel like the real estate game in general is that's what people feel. They feel like, oh, I saw this dude on TV flip a house and made $80,000 in profit. Like, how easy is that? I can do that. But they don't, again, like you're not seeing the behind the scenes. You're not seeing the years of training. You're not seeing there's a lot behind the scenes that you don't see that you're missing out on. And like you said, you can be an awesome realtor, but if the market's crap, then you're still going to struggle to sell houses and make rent. So I didn't realize the mortgage industry was the same way. I don't really, like I said, know a whole lot about it. So how did you get into real estate investing then?
Yeah, I bought my first triplex a number of years ago. Bought a home, got married and bought a home pretty young. And then at one point came across an individual that had a triplex that was really run down, and they just wanted to sell it real quick. And I thought, oh man, I just did some basic math, and like, if I can get this fixed up and rented, it's gonna have really good cash flow. And so, figured out how to buy that. But that kind of whet the appetite for it. So getting into the investing, that was really how it started. Through the Great Recession, I've always been intrigued by taking the time to see where if inefficiencies exist. It's one of the things I like about real estate. In most like in the world of securities, it's a very efficient market for the most part. It's like you got,
Mm-hmm.
1,000 buyers, 1,000 sellers. In real estate, sometimes you can find the ability to bring something highest and best that others don't see. And so it's like, oh, look at this, these rents are very undervalued, and the rent should be much higher. The going rent in this area should be X, and there's properties where it's much lower, or we could do some development here, we could add some units. So there's just a lot of opportunity for highest and best that exist in real estate, and that's one of the things that's super interesting to me. So yeah, it started, but that was my path in. I moved into the mortgage banking business and was able to, for a number of years, talking to many people that were investors, first time buyers as well, but also working with lots of investors, and just kind of had a front row seat into a lot of different things that people were doing, because I was helping with the financing, and I had a little bit of investment experience on my own. And so it's kind of like a paid education, just to be able to see what everyone else is doing, because I'm helping them with the financing. And so that was really my path in.
That's pretty awesome. That's really smart. So what's better than because the real estate's something I want to learn, it's something I want to do. I just, haven't had the time or the money right now. But it's definitely something on my radar that I want to do in the future, and get into my portfolio. What's better, especially starting out? Would it be commercial or residential?
Yeah, I'd probably residential. I think that there's we actually we decided to pass on it, but if you look in different states, first thing you have to decide is, are you buying to live in it, or are you buying it as an investment? I mean, it's sort of a clear upfront distinction. Nope, it's going to be for my family. Or nope, I want to buy it because I think it will be a good investment. So then you're just looking at the cash flow. It's like, all right, what is the cost of this property? What is the cost, monthly for financing and, down payment necessary in order to get that property? And then what is the rent, and what is the future rent? So I just have a spreadsheet and run projections on things and look to see, what the cash flow is against the cost of a property, what's the rent against the purchase price. And to answer the question, like, how do you get into it? The first question is like, where's the money going to come from for down payment? And then can you properly prepare for repairs and expenses that come up, and budget for that? But at the end of the day, I always, step back and look and see that, over time, real estate's going to grow, double about every 15 years. And you're going to have rents that will grow kind of in a similar fashion. Like, it just seems like that's the trend. And so I do a lot of fix and flip projects. Like, that's a little bit of a niche that we have, where we'll find properties that are, that are really run down, and buy them and go through the rehab and then resell them. That's been a niche of ours. And so I like that as a business model, because I can usually get about a 10% return for each project, and then for each turn, and then do that a couple of times a year. So it ends up being like a really good cash on cash return by turning the money a few times a year, and then having a net of kind of 8 to 10 to 12% for each turn. So that's a model that I like. So it really depends if somebody wants to be involved, right? This is something I'm involved in, or if somebody wants to be more passive, where they want to buy a property, get a renter, and then set and forget and just let it run its course. So those are two different strategies.
Well, why is residential easier than commercial?
And I'm not sure that it is. It's just the world that I know. I've been in the
Oh, okay.
residential lending side forever. And so because of that, that's flowed into the residential investing for me.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
I got you. Okay. So, can you talk to me about opportunity zones?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So opportunity zones are it, kind of the world's best kept tax secret. I mean, it's part of the 2017 Jobs and Tax Act, and it allows people that have capital gains. Let's say somebody has a property and they sell the property and they've got tax due from that property. They can take the gain portion and push it in to a real estate opportunity zone fund and defer paying the tax until 2027. But most importantly, all of the growth that takes place in the fund, they can then, as long as it stays in the fund for a 10-year window, you can exit once a year if you need to, but as long as it stays in there for a 10-year window, the money can then come out capital gains tax free, which is like mind blowing, like a
Wow.
Roth IRA, right? So all
Yeah.
the money that you put into a Roth IRA that grows and it comes out tax free, same thing, but it can be for all of any gains that come, at least up until 2026 when it turns off. So there's a window of time for the opportunity zone, but really the whole premise behind it, that's the benefit for an investor. The whole premise behind the opportunity zone was to take each state designates kind of like the lower income areas of each state, lower 20% income areas. And as long as the investments are done in a fund that invests in the lower 20% area, it then qualifies for this benefit. So that's a simplified version. The whole point is to be able to attract money into underdeveloped lower income areas to help revitalize and bring up those areas. And then of course brings up the tax base, so it helps the state, but it's a way to give investors a benefit with amazing tax benefits. And it's a way to bring money and capital that normally wouldn't be attracted to certain areas into areas that really need it for growth.
That's a great explanation. Thank you. Because I never heard of it until I was researching to talk to you. And then it's like, I'm like, what's an opportunity zone? So I Googled it, and man, I got confused. It's like that eventually I kind of figured it out, but
Yep.
man, that was a great explanation. Thank you. I so much more clear now.
Yeah,
I
absolutely. I appreciate it. I'm a simple guy, and so I like to just break things down to the most simple explanations. And it's actually a rule for investing for me. If I can't understand it and explain it in, a minute, then I'm not going to invest in it. And I'm not going to recommend it to people because I think life should be that simple. I don't want to invest in things that I don't really understand.
Absolutely 100%. So with that being said, even though that was a great explanation, I would still, if I'm going into the market and this is something I'm interested in, me personally, I'm really apprehensive. Like there's got to be, I'm not educated enough. There's got to be things I watch out for. There's got to be something. So are there any gotchas or any specific thing investors need to watch out for when they're trying to work with opportunity zones?
Yeah, so an opportunity zone is there's two different things. There's an opportunity zone strategy, and then there's the investment strategy of the fund itself. And so think of it kind of like the investment strategy is like the tax benefit is like the garage, and then the investments that are inside that are like the car parked in the garage. Like
Mhm.
that's the difference. So what I just explained is the overall, that's the garage, that's the tax treatment for people. Then what are the investments that are going to be inside that fund, that garage, so to speak? So that's that's one of the things that I was talking about, the fix and flip projects. And then for our model, we're developing build to rent townhomes. In Southern California, there's a dramatic undersupply of housing. There's an affordability, housing issue. And so we're building out, longer term plan is to build out 100 of these inside of the fund. In addition to, there's some rules that we have to follow in terms of development, and there's without getting, over technical in this conversation, there's some guidelines that we have to follow in order for us to be able to buy a project and it fit what's eligible in the opportunity zone. But the short version is we do projects that are pretty heavy fix and flip rehab projects, and then we have the townhome projects that are going to be build to rent. So those are the investments that we have. So to answer your question, an opportunity zone fund, all funds are not created equal, so to speak. You just have to be comfortable with the investment strategy of the fund, because different funds do different things with the money that they receive inside of that fund.
Right. And these funds are pre-built, correct?
Make sure I understand the question.
So kind of like what I got was that it's kind of like a mutual fund. You find the broker, if you will, that has the fund, and then you're investing and using said fund. Or is that not okay?
Yeah, so you would have to choose a fund. Let's just say that you have a busted 1031 exchange, which is fairly common for real estate investors, or you sell a property. You could even sell stock. It could be any capital gains. So let's just say that you have, I'll just use a simple example. You sell a project, it's $1 million sale, but you bought it for 500,000. That means your gain is going to be 500,000, because the difference from 1 million to 500. So you have a gain of 500,000 and you have 500,000 basis. What you can do is you can take the basis back. Your initial 500,000 can go back to you. And then the gain portion, the 500 gain, if you put that into an opportunity zone fund, what's called a QOF, Qualified Opportunity Fund, and it stays and grows inside of that fund, and you keep it there for the 10-year window, you're then eligible for the tax-free exit of the growth. And then, just for some kind of like simple explanation of compounding growth of money, we'll talk about what's called the rule of 72. And the rule of 72 means that if you have money, any money that you invest, and it's invested for 10 years and at a 7.2% rate of return, it's going to double. Okay. And so, like, the way I think and the way that I'm structuring my own investments, I'm a very sizable investor in my own fund, is that if money grows at 7.2% in 10 years, it will double. If money grows at 11.6% rate of return in 10 years, it will triple. And if money grows at 15% rate of return in 10 years, it will quadruple and then exit tax-free. Right. So my model is we're running between 11 and 15 right now. We've been running at 13.5% if I just look at the history of the fund the last 4 years. So my plan for me personally, and the likely outcome and what our target is that an investor over 10 years with whatever they put in, I want them to have somewhere from 3 times their money and tax-free. Maybe 4, that would be fantastic. But if I can have, if somebody can put in $1 million and have it turn into $3 million tax-free, that's an amazing outcome.
Yeah.
And strategy, right? So that's really my model, oversimplified, is to take that approach and then leverage the opportunities on tax benefit while it's here. Again, it's going to disappear in about 2 years.
So if it disappears, if they don't turn it back on, which they probably won't, because this sounds like a pretty awesome, smart policy to have. So obviously Congress is going to shoot it down. If they don't turn it back on, the money inside the fund is going to be safe for that 10 years, correct? Like, you just can't add anything to it. Is that how that's going to work?
It would mean that there would be no eligible contributions after 2026, but any money existing that's been contributed between 2018 and 2026 will then be eligible for that preferred tax treatment, growth, and tax-free exit.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, it's a shame that I'm just now hearing about this. This is like mind blowing that a program like this, that the United States government actually conceived something good for a change. Not a big fan of government.
Yeah, the less government, the better. But this is one they got right.
Absolutely. So, for people like me that have never heard of this before, do you know of any good resources out there where they can go find out and learn about what's going on?
Yeah, sure. We actually have a website that breaks down and gives some visuals and kind of comparison from 1031 to opportunity zone strategy. And that's the fund website, and that's www.cyrusozfund.com, CYRUSOZfund.com. And there's all of the frequently asked questions are there as well.
Okay, awesome. I appreciate that. And of course, I will have that link in the show notes. So just scroll down and find it.
Yeah, and I can send
So,
you too. We have a newsletter that goes out once a week
mhm.
that covers kind of the wave top benefits of the OZ. So there's an info form on the website to get subscribed for that as well.
Oh, awesome, awesome, awesome. Great resource. Awesome. Thank you. So I want to switch back to a little more personal real quick.
Sure.
And just one of the things I always try to learn from people, and one of the best advice I ever got from one of my mentors coming up in the army was you will never have a wasted day in your life if you learn at least one new thing every single day. How do you treat personal development slash furthering your education? What habits do you have? How do you treat that, and what do you do to continue to make sure you're constantly learning?
No, it's such a good question. I really liked, I haven't heard that before, but I really like that phrase. So, and that's part of my daily discipline is, so I do a couple things each day. I'll learn something new about my business, and that's the discover and declare that I was
Right, you
talking
talked
about as
about
part
that.
of the
Yeah.
core four. And then I also will learn something personally. So I usually will, not usually, I will daily listen to things or read things that will be personal development in some form or fashion. And I will read or listen or watch things that will be business development. So I do both every single day without fail. And then same thing, discover and declare. And so on the declare side, what I'll do is, maybe it's the weekends, because I keep the weekends really focused for just, family time and personal time. But I'll teach my kids. Like I'll teach my kids. My kids are silent investors on, some of the flip projects that I do as an example. So I'm always sharing with them if I learn something that's on the business side that I think is going to like help them. Got a fire engine going by. Excuse me one second. There we go. But if my I want to make sure that I can share with them what I think are the best practices and some of the secrets and things that you'd never learn in school, not the traditional education. So part of my declare process is to simplify the lessons and share them with my kids systematically.
So with your kids, like that is so awesome, and I wish more people did that because I feel like having so obviously your kids are investing their own money, correct? Being
Their
silent
money, that's
investors,
correct.
right? So how effective has that been teaching them not only the market and how to read the market, how to forecast the market, all that stuff, but just managing their money? How effective has it been teaching them those things?
Yeah, I think it's creating an awareness that is not normal. And like one example is I decided to create some incentives. And so something I did with my 17-year-old recently is I gave him a couple of books to read, and I told him that I would pay him after he read the book, and then wrote a summary of what his lessons were that he learned from it. So one that we did recently was like The Richest Man in Babylon as an
Mm-hmm.
example. So he read through it, and he's starting to understand like the wisdom of money from one of like the most amazing, sort of short stories that has to do with wealth building and making good investment decisions. So I mean, like all things, kids are kids, and but what I do know is if they can grow up, somewhat, I don't know if saturated is the right word, but at least, have a healthy, constant awareness of the best practices of wealth building and of personal development, that has nothing to do with what they learn in school, but just things that they learn from like, what dad does, then those are go-tos later in life where they're like, oh, you know what? I remember this lesson before. It's almost like it's the reticular activator is fired up now.
Right.
So yeah, it's been effective. But I mean, like as an easy example, and it doesn't change because I mean, we all have like different people are spenders and different people are savers, but the way I look at it, like every dollar spent today is $3 that you don't have 10 years from now, just from a growth standpoint, if it's invested reasonably well, back to the rule of 72. So
Right.
like I'll talk about those types of things fairly often, and sometimes it takes, sometimes it doesn't, but I do know that there's at least a heightened awareness. And instead of it being totally off the radar, now it's at least in the periphery.
Yeah. That's so important to me because for me, up until about 3 or 4 years ago, I was scared of the market. You talk about stocks, bonds, mutual, you talk about any of that stuff, and that stuff scared me because I didn't understand it.
Yep.
And I thought it was this super complex machine that you needed a PhD to understand and drive. And then I just took a couple of classes and it's like, oh, wait, the stock market doesn't seem that scary now that I'm starting to learn the language. And then now that I've been playing with it for a while, it's like, it's cool. It's easy. I mean, not easy, but it's not what I thought it was. So I think it's great that your kids aren't going to have that same fear that I did because they're growing up with it. And I think that's special and is going to help them dramatically throughout their life.
Yeah, we all fear what we don't understand, and so I think that's part of us, on the mortgage banking side as well. Part of what is really important to me for, the clients that we're serving and everyone on the team here is to be an educator. We have a saying called like, have the heart of a teacher. So
Mhm.
be not a salesperson, be a teacher and be an educator. And when we do that, then we help to reduce fear and I don't know about eliminate, but reduce fear and uncertainty. And that empowers people to then be able to maybe see what they couldn't see on their own. But yeah, there's endless opportunity out there. And I think it's unwarranted fears can prevent a lot of people from doing what's in their own best interest.
I respect that, and I think that's one of the best business models I've ever heard. Approach every client as as if you're just teaching them and educating them, and I think that probably sells itself with most people because, like you said, it's going to make them feel safe. So, Mike, we're coming up on time. I really appreciate you being here, joining us, and just sharing all your love and wisdom with my audience. Do me a favor, real quick, though, and tell my audience how they can find you, get a hold of you. You do public speaking, I believe, as well.
Yeah, yeah, fairly recently it's become it's been happening more and more. So I in fact probably the best way, I have a website. It's MikeHardyBio.com, and my email's there. I did an Ironman a while back. I wrote a story about that. The Opportunity Zone info is there. Some of the investment projects, Churchill Mortgage. We do webinars. We actually do webinars for education based that are on comparing the market we're in now to 2008. What's the same, what's different, just helping people understand, what's really happening, not just the media headlines. So yeah, and my email's there. So if anybody wants to reach out on whether it's Opportunity Zone or understanding how to just make smart decisions in real estate and with mortgages if necessary, that's a good way to go. And then I'm sure we can put my email in the show notes as well. But yeah, happy to any way I can serve. I mean, the way I look at it too, Stephen, is that It's almost like the concept of when I meet somebody, I never really know. I'm actually okay with any outcome. I never really know, am I supposed to help them? Are they supposed to help me? Or is it both ways? And I'm fine with any of them. Sometimes I'm just supposed to help with nothing in return. Sometimes I'm going to gain something, and sometimes it's both ways. We help each other, and all of them are great outcomes because somebody is improving. And so I'll end with this, but there's a saying I like, which is one new idea or one new relationship can completely change the trajectory of your life. One new idea or one new relationship. And I think that's the beauty of life. It's a great adventure, is we can meet somebody new and a whole new world of possibility and opportunity can open up.
So you just stole my thunder, and I don't appreciate it. I end every show asking my guests, telling them they have the honor of sharing the final word of wisdom. And the question I ask them is, how can the best advice they can give on how people can lead like champions? So you stole it from me, and I don't appreciate it. So take it back.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. I appreciate your time. And of course, I'm going to have all your links and contact information in the show notes, guys. So as always, scroll down to the bottom, make sure you head over to Mike's stuff and check him out, give him tons of love. And once you're done doing that, head over to renownedleadership.com and give me some love, because I need all the loves. But with that being said, guys, I appreciate you listening to us again. Mike, thank you so much for joining us. He is Mike Hardy. I am your amazing host, Stephen Morris. I appreciate it, guys. I will see y'all next week. And until then, don't forget to lead like a champion. Goodbye, everybody.
I try to sleep, but you're deep in my mind. Got a hold of me. When I'm awake, I'm all blind.
All right, everybody, that's going to wrap up this week's episode. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you all enjoyed listening to Mike. I had a great time chatting with him. He's an awesome dude. I had a whole lot of fun talking to him. And if you're interested in getting into the real estate game like I am, definitely highly recommend him and his associates. They are a solid company with a great mission and great values. So go check him out. His links are below. Go give him tons and tons of love. Once you're done doing that, head over to renownedleadership.com. Click at the top middle of the screen, talk to a coach now. You can come talk to me absolutely free, and we'll see what you got going on. So that's going to wrap it up for this week, and I will see you all next week. Actually, next week is Christmas, so there are going to be some bonus episodes for y'all. Make sure y'all tune in Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and of course, the natural or normal time. But yeah, I hope you all have a safe and happy holiday, and I will see you all Christmas Eve. All right, everybody, don't forget, lead like a champion. Bye.